Number 5, position statement on the transport and care of patients with behavioral disorders.
Hey, Chief, where you going to put it up? Behavioral health is only like 5,000 people.
Ooh, scan and text flex.
I'm really driving, not very good right now. All right, so going to. So this is kind of a position from the medical directors on the management of behavioral health patients. We've updated it. Dr. Moore has been the lead on this, and we're asking for the council's approval to update ours on the website. So what's new is under 9A and 9B. It said medical personnel before, and it was changed to EMS personnel pertaining. This is coming from the EMS medical directors. Number 10 was added pertaining to transporting EMS units across jurisdictional or county lines, requesting that law enforcement do either a police officer's warrant or emergency detention warrant from the originating jurisdiction. What happens is we're transporting patients to a different county, to a hospital, and the patient needs a warrant or a police officer's warrant. The local jurisdiction had nothing to do with the call. The other jurisdiction didn't come, and so we are putting this wording in about the importance and the difficulties that it creates, not just for EMS personnel, but also for the receiving physicians. In addition, if you'll scroll down to the position, number 3, 4, and 5 are also new and added that were not on the previous paper. I think it was 10 years ago, Bobby, something like that. It's been quite a while. In the event the patient has a straightforward acute medical health condition that may be medically cleared by EMS based upon history and the vital signs of patient presentation, the local agencies should work with mental health facilities to directly receive patients who have primary mental health disease and who have been medically cleared by EMS. And then transport of those patients should be ideally done by law enforcement officials to assure safety, both the patient and the EMS personnel. So this encourages local EMS agencies and facilities to work collaboratively to stop the madness of sending mental health patients to an ER for medical clearance who will then sit there for hours and then try to get into a medical health facility where other places across the country are able to get these patients cleared by EMS and directly into. It's nothing state mandated, but this is a request and a position for the medical directors at a local jurisdiction. We should be looking at taking the patients to the right destination. And in the event it is mental health, EMS shouldn't be the only transportation. In many cases, law enforcement and other transportation should be encouraged because acute care EMS personnel are not always the most appropriate to deal with mental health conditions. And on a routine basis, you can see the statistics on how EMS personnel are being injured every day by patients with behavioral health issues. And so I would like to make a motion that the GETAC Council approve these updates so that we can post this on the medical director's webpage.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Questions for Dr. Beeson?
Were there any other parts of this rule that were changed?
No, sir. Just the A and B were changed to EMS personnel. 10 was added. 3, 4, and 5 were added.
Any stakeholder comment? Going once, twice. No stakeholder comment. Any further council discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thanks.
Thank you. Now we get a report from the task force on freestanding emergency departments and other facilities providing emergency care and the potential categorization or designation of such entities. I bet that's Dr. Greenberg.
That would be me. 9 o'clock this morning, we had about this many people in this room for a little bit over 2 hours to discuss freestanding emergency departments and how they fit into the emergency healthcare system. Pretty robust discussion. I thought it was a good meeting. and I'll kind of cut to the chase, is asking the audience, and with all of the testimony we had, the bottom line was, and I did pass this by the task force, there was overwhelming support for categorization and designation of freestanding emergency departments and inclusion of freestanding emergency departments in the emergency healthcare system. So, and I would say as a comment, that's a change from the past where people were wondering what these facilities were for. So again, the task force itself was to see if designation categorization made sense. So my recommendation from the task force at this time is that we have a task force propagates task force to look at the specifics of categorization, designation, and how freestanding EDs fit into the emergency healthcare system. So the first question was, should they be? Now we're actually at the nitty-gritty, the devil's in the details, to come up with what that would look like, true rulemaking. So that would be my recommendation. Uh-oh.
Hello. We really need to review the enacting legislation for these types of entities. I'm not sure about categorization, if it would empower the department to do that. I'm pretty darn sure designation is not in there, so we're talking about legislative change.
Correct.
So just FYI.
Yep. No, we did discuss that during the task force, that this was not something that would happen quickly, but that it's something that should be looked at in preparation for, because I think still the devil's in the details, and until we start getting into the details, we're not going to know what we're asking for.
So what action does the council need to take?
Appoint a task force to look at the specifics of categorization, designation, and how freestanding EDs fit in the emergency healthcare system. It's very similar to what the original task force was, except to begin with, we didn't know if people wanted it. That was the whole question, was, should freestanding EDs be part of the system? So it's really an extension.
Can
You look like I'm giving you a headache.
I'm trying to simplify. Can we take the people that were on the task force that came up with this recommendation and then just extend them into the further work?
Yep, think we could.
You can change my mind after I'm gone.
And we can ask for addition. It's going to be quite a bit more work, I think, but yes, we absolutely could.
So does that mean council needs to take a specific action vote, or is this just a general discussion to continue an existing task force?
Chair's discretion?
Chair's discretion.
Right.
I was going to say, if the original charge is complete, then I would say that you would just task them with a second charge, same task force.
Okay, and I'm open to suggestions on that charge.
It's to come up with a specific criteria for categorization and designation.
Okay.
And as Jane pointed out, it will take a legislative change to have them designated. But I think if that's going to be looked at, I think people need to have an idea for what it would look like before they ask for it. Mm-hmm. So I think and we know that'll take a couple of years.
Okay.
So I think it's good to get started on it. We can do it to ourselves rather than having it done to us.
All right. I don't think we need to vote on that. We're just taking a task force and giving them further direction.
Okay. Consider it done.
Okay. Item 7 is how to improve the sharing of a medical facility's patient outcome data with EMS providers.
Is that the letter from Kathy?
Oh, that was Dr. Beeson's request that we have a letter from Kathy Perkins encouraging facilities to do this, that it's within their purview to do so. We do have the letter. It is signed. It's ready for posting. I believe Dr. Beeson has a copy of it. I just didn't have a copy of it in your packet.
Has it already been released or not?
No, we'll get it posted next week.
Okay. No, I did receive the letter, and it did support the statute, and it was very nicely written.
Okay, so we really don't need to take any action? The
No, I
letter
would just,
solves the
whenever it's
problem.
released, it would be nice for all of us to make sure that others know, especially, I think the biggest group's going to be Ryan's group with the EMS providers throughout the state that are still having difficulty, that this is from the commissioner, and here's a letter of how, when, and why that we should be getting outcome days.
Okay,
Well,
There are definitely roadblocks to that all
Sure.
across the state for various reasons, but some of it's just kind of an attitude towards it as well.
Well, I think this letter clearly states those that are claiming HIPAA is the reason they can't give us information is completely inaccurate. So it very clearly, I feel it clears that up. And it even says it in ways that I can't, so it's understand, so it's probably written for attorneys. So hopefully they can understand it.
so just
Don't bet on that.
Or at the ninth grade level.
So just out of curiosity, should after the letter is out and the appropriate parties have that letter and there are still roadblocks, what is the appropriate steps with the Department of State Health Services?
I don't know, another kind of hammer, I'm not sure. Probably the best way is to handle it on an individual facility basis and start going to the facilities and say, look, EMS is delivering patients here for the improvement of our system. You guys need to come together and start working together and sharing that information. I mean, it's in the rule that the hospital is supposed to provide information back to the other hospital, the referring hospital, on the outcome of the patient. It would be likewise for the EMS firm.
Okay. Seeing no action necessary on that, we'll go to number 8, review the final edited version of the Pediatric Committee's report titled Pediatric Transfer and Transport Guidelines and an Accompanying Plan of Action. Sam Vance is jumping to the microphone.
On behalf of Dr. Macias, the way I understand it, you all should have the final edited version, is what I was told, and that should also be on the DISH's website. As far as the plan of action, I believe he spoke about that a little while ago, as the Pediatric Committee is currently discussing a dissemination plan, and we'll have a written action plan ready for you in February, if that can be placed back on the agenda for February.
Okay, so this copy would be for the council members to look at, and then it's back on the agenda in February to approve?
No.
This copy you have now
Yes.
could be approved, and then the action plan
Okay,
for
thank you.
dissemination will be in February. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was on the agenda last time, but we didn't have a copy to review, so give us a
Right.
copy so that we could review
Yeah,
it.
you did approve it with the changes that I presented to you in August.
Oh, that's right.
It's just, they're actually written into
We
the
already
document
passed
now.
it, that's right.
So, yeah, I mean, essentially,
right?
Yes.
yes, sir.
Right, okay. I remember that.
And then, if you don't mind, I can jump ahead to the next one, number 9. Dr. Macias asked if you could defer that to the May meeting.
To May?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You'll have
Yeah.
to remind us of that in February.
Sure.
So does the council need to take any action, or was this just a final copy of what we've already approved?
That was just a final copy of
Okay.
what you already approved.
All right.
But what are you asking for the next meeting?
The actual, the action plan for dissemination, we gave you ideas of what we planned on doing, and we're still talking about that, but we don't have anything in writing as far as a dissemination plan to present to you.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
And then I do have a question on the task force on the freestanding EDs, or do I need to wait for public comment?
Technically, you should wait for public comment, but since you're standing there,
Well,
you
I
had a
appreciate
question.
that.
Yeah.
So Dr. Greenberg, is there any pediatric representation on that? The reason I ask is because 99% of the commercials you see advertising these show the kid falling off the jungle gym, breaking their arm, and are advertising to the parents, bring your kids here.
Yeah,
At least in the Houston.
there's absolutely representation of kids on there because you just joined.
All right. Well,
You're welcome.
I should have seen that coming. Should have seen that, but that's okay.
Are you willing to serve?
Should have sat down.
Yes, sir,
shouldn't
You're
I'm fine
on.
with that. Thank you, I appreciate that.
And thank you.
That'll probably stop a lot of future public comment and get assigned to a task. All right, number 11, report on stroke transport bypass position paper, recommendations for Texas Texas Emergency Medical Systems, stroke triage and transport.
So, as I said earlier, the stroke committee's not ready to make a proposal on triage-based transport. The transport recommendation remains transport stroke patients to the highest level of care with no more than a 15-minute bypass. The paper that's on the website right now, I'd like to request that it stay on the website right now to encourage comments as we continue to work on that area. So, no action.
No action. Okay, it's going to be on the website, and people can feed comments to the stroke committee.
Yes,
Correct.
please.
Okay, thank you. Number 12, review the Hartford Consensus 3 report as it relates to empowering the public to serve as first responders in intentional mass casualty and active shooter events. I think,
Yeah, we just have to approve it.
okay, I think we've heard plenty of support, so really it's just a, do we need specific wording to, just a motion of support? Would that,
Can we also add stop the bleed? Because that way we've got Hartford Consensus and Stop the Bleed, which is really just another.
Well, yeah, they are a little bit. They are a little bit different. Stop the Bleed is for layperson.
Right.
And then the Hartford Consensus is
So I
layperson
figure a lot
plus
of us
goes
are going
in.
to be teaching lay people as
Yeah.
well.
But they are different, different things. They overlap. Yeah, they overlap, so
Yeah.
I don't want people to think you could pick one or the other, because they are different.
my only concern, unless it's on here somewhere, is that doesn't say that we're going to take action on Stop the Bleed, or are they just close enough that no one's going to raise an issue?
They are close enough.
Okay.
So
Okay.
still make the motion.
Well, if you
Okay.
give us one, we'll ask for the second in February.
Let's just do them both now.
I think they're close enough on the topic of the agenda that we can do both now.
Yeah.
And I have a motion over here. What's your motion?
That we support it,
Okay?
whatever George said.
Okay.
Is it that we support the Hartford Consensus 3 and Stop the Bleeding as it relates to public and first responders?
I think that's exactly what Mike said.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Any more public comment?
Chief,
Yes, sir.
just make sure it's stop the bleed. Yeah, stop the bleed.
Okay, thank you. Stop the Bleed.
Right.
All right. I think it's an awesome thing, and I'm glad we're going to support it. So, do you have any?
I said stop the bleed, Jody said bleed.
Let's
Jory,
stop
did you
all
have
of
any
it.
comments? No? Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Motion passes. Now we're going to get into the number 13, which is discussion and possible approval of revisions to the GETAC operational plan and GETAC procedural rules. This is a pickup from our October meeting in Austin. I think Colin was going to throw the draft. In summary, for the stakeholders, we had what we call the GETAC strategic plan, and then we have the state EMS and trauma, now emergency healthcare plan, and they were getting confused. So one of the things we did was we decided to change this council's plan to the council's operational plan and take strategic out to keep the things, okay.
So just a word here, this still has track changes on it. It may
Correct.
be a little difficult to read, so.
Right, and so I think what we'll do is just go through the highlights. We're not going to look at the date changes and things like that. And council can pitch in where I get wrong on this. All right, go ahead and go on to get out of the executive summary, please. Go on to the next pages, and because that's, I think, it's just a listing. Sure. And then we'll just go to each one real quick. And go ahead. There we go. So this was from the council strategic, now council operational plan. We've accomplished this, so we just took this completely off of our operational plan. It's already part of our procedures. So go on to the next goal. Y'all stop me if I'm going too fast. We left this goal in, and let me see if we assigned something to somebody who missed a meeting. By the way, this has not been passed yet. This is still in draft form, but this came out of the meeting that we had. So the action item under this goal was to assign a council member as an ex officio liaison to each GETAC committee, not necessarily on it, but to assign liaisons. And Jody and Dr. Greenberg are going to work on that, and that's not due till February of 2016 if council approves it. We can roll to the next one. This goal was changed to, we'll take an ongoing, regular, and transparent review of all committees based on need, structure, charges, and reporting relationships. That's not going to change any existing committees at this time. This is just a goal that's been there, and we've worded it to be a little more flexible. Let's see. I think we assigned that to Dr. Beesh and Judge and Linda, and that's due in May if council approves.
I recommend that the judge's name be put on top of mine.
Neither one of you were there.
Yeah. Go ahead, next one. Right.
This looks like a continuation here.
Yeah, it's
I
a
believe.
continuation.
I say, boy, they signed up for a lot.
All right.
There we
so,
Sweet, take me on that. Look at all those
and
stripes.
council, you'll have to help me out with this, but what we've done is, and probably it'll be shown on the goals, is the Texas Emergency Health Care Plan, what Jory still refers to as trauma, which I think the word's in there, but we'll have to look again. But that's that we're going to look at that every 2 years, on an alternate every 2 years, and then the council's operational plan will be on those opposite years. And so when the council talks about their operational plans, we'll want all the committee chairs there to go over the GETAC process. And y'all help me out. We were going to do the emergency health care plan, aka trauma plan,
So that's
in
actually
odd-numbered years?
That's actually one of the other items here.
Operational plan is on odd.
Okay, the operational plan is on odd. The even is the emergency health care plan, and that's so council and the stakeholders can firm up those changes so that if someone wants to use that to go to the legislature, it'll be ready in time for them to do that. So
that's actually goal D.
okay, there we go, item D.
Yes.
And that spells out it's even and odd years, so we have a normal rhythm of how that's supposed to work.
So let me go back here. Yeah, this is a little tricky. It's a little slow here.
Okay.
All right. That's where you left off there.
Okay. Slow back up. Go back up just a little bit. Yes, I'm not sure, y'all help me out, I'm not sure that's worded. I think what we're asking is the committees actually have a secretary who provides written minutes of those committee meetings.
That was a goal for that one.
Dudley, you ran up here, did I misspeak, or?
I don't know, I just want to make sure when you were talking about the two plans,
Mm-hmm.
the emergency health care plan we were going to do in the odd year, so we had it in the even year to brief legislators in preparation for the next odd year's legislative session. We were going to wrap it up at the end of the odd year, so we had it in the even year, because that's when all the pre-work is done, is in even years.
Okay, is that what's up there and I just misspoke?
I'm not sure, because I can't see that from here.
So
Oh, okay.
my notes say the opposite to that. So whatever you all decide, I will incorporate here.
We went back and forth on that, and I can't remember where we ended up.
So I think the legislature is odd years.
Yes.
So we wanted it to be ready to go in the even years.
So we were going to review it in the odd year, wrap it up in November of the odd year, so that in the even year, it was updated, ready to go for preparation for the legislative session.
I think I remember
Yeah,
that
if we-
as well.
Yeah, I think we went back and forth on this, if you remember. I think
Yeah.
we decided if we did it in the even year in October, it wouldn't be ready in time for the session, even though it seems intuitive that would be the right time, it's actually not. So if you do it at the end of the odd year, it's then available during the even year, which, like you said, is when the pre-work is done.
Okay.
And if you could convince me to do it the other way.
Who's on first? But,
So
so
what
did you
we
get
have
that
is-
change?
So this needs to be swapped then, correct? As it's stated here for Goldie?
Yes. Needs to be changed. Those are the meetings we need to record.
Okay.
Which makes sense because we updated that plan in 2015, which is an odd year, so that matches the rotation. At least that sounds good to me. So go ahead and move on up. Keep going.
And here's the,
There it is. We need to change that.
here.
Go
yeah,
back up.
to odd.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, keep on going. Stop right there. I think we just left that as is.
I think we actually marked that one as accomplished, didn't we?
Yes.
Yes, it's an accomplishment. So we can move on to the next one. All right, this was about orienting council members and other requirements tied to membership roles and responsibilities. The governor's office apparently has stopped those programs, those orientation programs that many of us went through, at least those of us on council. That's why Jane and her staff do that for the committee members and new council members, I would assume. Yes, they continue to provide training. Is this where we talked about the issue of, no, that was procedural rules. I'll remember that when we get to procedural rules. So continue. Okay, so that one will need to be changed to October of even years for the operational plan. So what we're looking at here is the operational plan. All right, come on down. This was partnering with the organizations to support GETAC, and we get great support from TTAF, so we've left that in there. I think we totally eliminated Goal J, probably never to be discussed again.
Correct.
All right?
And that's it.
Throw it out there for us to do again, and you can walk away.
No. Not under my term, it won't be brought up again. Okay, so then we have to look at the operation, I'm getting mixed up, the procedural rules, standard operating procedures, procedural rules, if you have those.
I don't know if I do here.
Okay.
I do not.
Right, that may be something that has to be pushed.
Yeah.
We need to clean it up anyway.
Right, and the one of the issues on the procedural rules was, there was discussion about, can officers of associations be council members? And does that apply, same state rule apply to committees?
That's correct. In the statute, there is an exclusionary clause, and it says, a trade association means a cooperative or voluntarily joined association of business or professional competitors in this state, designed to assist its members and its industry or profession in dealing with mutual business or professional problems and in promoting their common interest. A person may not be a member of the advisory council if the person is an officer, employee, or paid consultant of a Texas trade association in the field of emergency medical services, or the person's spouse is an officer, manager, likewise, of an emergency medical service. May not be a member of the advisory council if the person is required to register as a lobbyist under Chapter 305 of the Government Code. And that's the exclusionary clauses.
Okay, so, for example, I'm with the Texas Fire Chiefs Association. We definitely support EMS. Most of our members are first responders and/or provide ambulance transport. If I were to be on council, I could not also be the president of the Texas Fire Chiefs according to that clause. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the discussion was, does that apply to committees or does it not, because we created the committees and they're not in statute?
With the exception, well, they're not created in statute with the exception of stroke.
Right.
But the direction that you may use committees is in statute. So you're given the authority under this statute to utilize committees. I don't know what the OGC ruling is on that, what their opinion is. I apologize, I have not asked them. But I will float that question to them and have it back to you for your February meeting. I suspect they're going to say that the committees operate as GETAC. That's how we have it in the procedural rules, and that they would apply. But I do not know that for absolute.
So can you ask two questions then? One is, does it apply to committee members? And if they say yes, is there a way that we can ask them if there's a way that they cannot apply to committee members? Committee members don't vote. Only council members vote.
True.
So
If it applies, how could we exclude them?
Right. If they give us the answer we don't like,
Right.
how can we get the answer we want?
Hey, I got you.
Because, the members of the committee are some of the most active people in the state, and they also tend to be officers of their organizations. And I think we would lose very valuable input and insight and workers if we had to do that.
I agree, but can I ask where why are we opening this can of worms? Because it's been this way for a lot of years.
Because I read the law again after our strategic planning session, and we had talked about the committees, and we had talked about, there's something else in there that we've talked about quorums. And so I read it in the statute, so it's kind of like if you've got the information, you have to do something with it, so I gave it to you.
Okay. I concur, though, he's correct. Most of the people who are interested parties in our field are interested parties in multiple ways, and that would be extremely detrimental.
And then the other part of this conversation was, and correct me if I'm wrong, we were talking about quorums in order to be able to do business. And did we recommend in the procedural rules, which have not been adopted yet, or the changes have not been adopted yet, that a quorum, somebody refresh me what that was?
You said of the members of the committee that were present at the meeting, a quorum would be a majority of those committee members. So if you apply it strictly, if you had a committee meeting with 3 committee members, 2 committee members could carry that motion. So with that in mind, you have to think about what's the other consequence is that would impact work groups. We have lots of work groups. So if you had 3 members of a committee on a work group, you now have a quorum of a committee. So it gets to be sort of a sticky wicket. Again, I give this one back to you.
Oh, thank you. February meeting.
I knew that was coming.
No, seriously, and I think we were concerned in the October meeting that it was difficult sometimes to get a quorum when you were short one person of having that quorum, and then we're slowing down the business of the GETAC process, but maybe we went the other way and it's gone too far. So any committee chair that would have any thoughts or comments is welcome to provide that at this time.
I think in order to keep transparency in other groups, and I know there have been other groups that have done this in order to get business done, I think the cross-section that we have and who we represent, somehow having a quorum of 3 to make a decision that big is a problem.
Pull up to microphone.
I think making that decision would be a problem, that we probably need to look at a quorum of members that are on the council instead of members that are present.
I think one of the struggles we have is that we have members that don't attend, and we don't have control of our own membership, if you will. So we've had members that don't attend for a year, and we know they're not attending. They count towards the quorum, and we don't have control as the council to replace that person.
I guess then maybe we need to contact the governor's office at the 50% attendance and say, we either need you or we need you.
All right. So I don't know that that's a quick fix, though. I think that's the struggle we have, though.
Yeah.
Okay, well, clearly the operational or SOPs of the council are not ready for voting on tonight, and that'll have to be put back on for February. Are we comfortable enough with the GETAC operational plan to vote tonight, or do you want to put that on February as well and see a cleaned up version? It's y'all's call. It doesn't make me any difference.
Good.
I think they go together. I don't know if there's an advantage to passing one today versus February.
Yeah.
You want, yeah.
Push.
I'd say put it all in February.
Okay, so item 13 will be pushed to the February GETAC meeting.
I'd like to change my notes.
Item 14 is discuss and confirm date for a January special call meeting of GETAC to review proposed revisions to DSHS emergency medical care rules in 25 TAC 157.
Okay, this is, we would like very much to be able to take the product of these several years of work on the rules to the February workday session of the Health Services Council. Basically what that means is that we're giving them a heads up that this rule will be coming and would be coming in May to their regular council meeting. The reason that I want to do that is because we've made a lot of changes and a lot of formatting changes and I feel like they need that heads up to know that it is coming. So one of the things when we started down this process was that the council wanted to see this rule when it had been vetted through committees. We had had lots of stakeholder input. You did not want to see it piecemeal. So I'd like for you to entertain the thought of having an additional council meeting for the review of Chapter 157. We've committed to working with the committee chairs in this process, that when we have a pretty much finalized draft ready for proposal, that we will sit down with the committee chairs and go through that so that they understand where the nuances are, what the committee suggested to us in the beginning. We have all those, and that how those were incorporated or not, and why, to have that discussion. So we would like to bring that to you so that we can have we can't do it in an hour-and-a-half meeting or a 3-hour meeting. This is going to take a considerable block of time.
And I think we had originally put 4 hours. Wasn't that 10 to 2, or was it 10 to 4?
Colin, what did we do?
Yeah, it was a 10 to 4 block. Based on Dudley Waite's comments, though, earlier, he said potentially going through the EMS rule, all the various chapters there, was probably going to take at least 3 to 4 hours.
Well, if they did all the work for us.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and there was a survey sent out.
Yes, sir.
The replies we got, it came to January the 27th as actually the best by a little teeny tiny bit.
Yeah, so 11 people responded, 6 were for the 27th, and 5 were for the 12th. So,
and that was after we had a lot more. So I would actually put it out there, if people can look at their calendars, can we select January 27th? Dr. Beeson already has an alibi.
No, the 12th is the EMS conference.
Yeah, it's
the EMS physician conference.
Yeah, that's NAEMSP. So he'll be out.
The 20-something.
27th, you said you had a conflict.
Unanimous.
So January 27th in Austin. The question is, we're back to quorum issues, so it won't do us any good to have 6 people.
Correct.
But we floated originally 8 or 9 dates.
Quite a few.
Yeah, and then came down to 2, and then we did those 2. How does the 27th look? I got a nod. Good for you.
Now it looks fine, but
Yeah, I'll be sorry we picked.
Closer, I need a pin.
We'll all hate it when it gets closer.
I would support the council meeting on the 27th.
I knew you would. Still looking at 10 to 4.
Yeah, right. Sounds like a 10 to 4. I mean, and if it's just us, I think if somebody, the judge has to fly in. If you tell us there's a time that's better because of flights, I don't mind adjusting it around travel.
I'm good here.
Okay.
The last time I sat in front of a Verizon store until 10 o'clock, so, because my phone crashed, so.
Oh.
I'm good.
All right. So 27th? Should we do it?
for now.
For now?
For now.
Being the potential contentious nature of some of the things that still have yet to kind of be flushed out, there's not many, but there are some, and it is an open meeting. I mean, are we going to have a proctor? We're going to have a whip and a chair? Are we going to have a security guard?
I would actually recommend we have a timed agenda.
So each rule gets X?
Yeah, looking at the rules, and we'll have to go through it ahead of time and figure out which rules may take some more time. But as Dudley's pointed out, we all have an opinion, and if we give ourselves 6 hours, we'll get it done in 7. If we give ourselves 4, we'd probably get it done in 5. So I think I'll be interim chair at the time, so the burden will be on me to try to move the agenda. Not trying to stifle comments, but
We know the department has had 15 14 stakeholder meetings just for the EMS rules alone, just for the EMS sections. That doesn't count the trauma or the stroke or the RAC. So we've had lots of dialogue and comments have come in, and so it's not been done in a vacuum.
Are you saying that because that'll make the day go quicker?
I seriously doubt it.
Was
But
it your
just
hope
so
that it would
you
make
know,
it quicker?
It would be hopeful,
Right,
but probably not.
right. I don't, what's the will of the council? I mean, 10 to 4 is 6 hours. It makes it easy for people to travel back and forth. If we want to start at 7 and go till midnight, that's okay too. But travel plans are travel plans, and we're going to lose steam after
No,
4 to
7 to
6
midnight
hours.
is not okay.
We know we're going to lose steam after about 6
Let's
hours
just start
anyway.
at 10 and we go till we can't go anymore.
All right. Can you book your latest flight?
I know. I mean, I think 10 to 4 is fine, but we get at 4:30.
Ryan will fly you home.
Okay. 27th in a building that has a door that doesn't lock us in after 5.
Well, we can post it as beginning at 10 o'clock. We normally don't post end times. We have on the last one simply for, planning for travel arrangements.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so item 14 has been resolved. Next, we're open for general public comment. General stakeholder comment. Sure.
I have two things to talk about. One is, as you know, I was not at the last meeting. I'm also involved in an Institute of Medicine meeting that looks at trauma. So if I was there, I would say this, that the trauma community has worked really hard to identify ourselves. We've worked for 20 years, and what we've really worked to say is trauma is way beyond the emergency department. We're in the ICU all the way through rehab. My concern is changing the name. We're going to lock us back into that concept. And the second thing is that now we have an interim study for the trauma system. And now when they look for things, they're not going to see where the trauma system is by the title. So I just ask, to reconsider that. And the second thing I want to talk about is the state of Texas has lost some very significant leaders in the last year. Dr. Red Duke, Erwin Thal, and Matt Davis. So I would just like to ask you for a moment of silence to recognize them. We wouldn't be here in many ways without some of their initial investment, talking to the legislators about the importance of the system.
Excellent
Thank
idea.
you.
Let's have a moment of silence. Thank you. Any other general public comments? Dudley.
DSHS put out, or actually HHSC, I guess, anyway, somebody in the state bureaucracy put out the notice of 2 public meetings, stakeholder input meetings, regarding the process they're going through to try to I use the word mash the current 6 agencies into something new that's kind of being required by the sunset process. Anyway, if you haven't seen that email, I'd be happy to provide it to anybody that needs it. One of them is on April 2nd, one of them is in December 2nd in Austin. The other one is December 10th, I believe, in Amarillo. And they are seeking, this is the first step in seeking stakeholder input in how basically they're going to reorganize everything that falls underneath HHSC, what's going to get folded into HHSC, what will stay in DSHS, and move forward in that manner. It's got some real implications to EMS and trauma, so I would encourage folks to seek that out. There's actually a web page about the HHSC integration. And I would encourage everybody to seek that out and educate yourselves on it as much as possible. The other thing I wanted to speak about real quick, I didn't get up here in time for item 14, but when you schedule that date in January and you communicate that date to the rest of the council members, the one thing I've seen that really helps this move along well is, and I don't mean to get in people's business, but if you take the time to read through the rules before you come to the meeting, it will move much smoother. Because it's, some of that stuff is just, and if it's in an area where you're not used to, so if the EMS guys look at the trauma rules and read that ahead of time, it'll help. If the hospital and guys look at the EMS rules ahead of time, it'll help when you get through that process. So, and then the last thing is Chief, it's been a pleasure. I know you're not going anywhere. You're just not going to be here every quarter sitting in that chair. But from one Aggie to another Gig'em, you've done a great job, and I appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you, Dudley.
Dudley, would you send that email to council, reference HHSC and the movement? Thank you, sir.
Any other public comment or stakeholder comment? Going once, going twice. Comments from the council?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a final thank you. I'm watching for the last gavel.
Oh, you are?
And then we're going to applaud, just so you know.
So I'm not seeing any other comments from anybody. So to the best of my knowledge, we've been in contact with the governor's office, and Dr. Greenberg will be the interim chair, as we understand the governor's office, and until a permanent one is appointed. And I know that he will do a fine job as with the council. What makes the GETAC process work is not only DISH's staff, but all the stakeholders and the council members, and it's because we love and respect each other. So I will say, love and respect.